Dear viewers and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel discussion, Building a Future-Ready Cybersecurity Framework, part of second edition of ET Government DigiTech Conclave 2021. India has seen an exponential rise in the cybersecurity incidents amid the coronavirus pandemic. Cybersecurity threats are becoming an emerging factor in an ever-expanding and technology-driven market. One lesson that organizations have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic is that the need to future-proof their operations. This starts with future-proofing their cybersecurity infrastructure. Without the right and robust technology foundation, even the best cybersecurity strategies can fall apart. Being aware of potential cybersecurity threats, building a threat-resistant and agile IT infrastructure, and adoption of best practices to mitigate operational hiccups and security risks are most potential needs of every organization these days. As a result, cybersecurity technology and service providers are shifting priorities to support current needs, business continuity, remote work, and planning for transition to the next normal and bring cyber resilience. On behalf of ET government, I, Arpit Gupta, welcome our esteemed panelists to this panel discussion. To lead the panel, I am joined by eminent leaders from the states and industry. I welcome Mr. Manoj Abraham, Additional Director General of Police Headquarters and Nodal Officer, Cyberdome, Kerala Police, Government of Kerala. Dr. Triveni Singh, Superintendent of Police Cybercrime, UP Police, Government of Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Balsing Rajput, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Crime Prevention, Maharashtra Police, Government of Maharashtra. Mr. Golok Kumar Simli, Chief Technology Officer, Passport and Sewa, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Jatin Gambhir, Country Business Head, Akamai Technologies, and Mr. Samani, McAfee Fellow, Chief Scientist, McAfee. I welcome all of you. Let me begin the discussion. My first question to Mr. Manoj Abraham. Sir, cyber attacks and cyber-related crimes are on the rise in India. What has been the experience of Kerala in this regard? How are you addressing these same?
As you mentioned, cyber crimes is one of the major chunk of all the criminal activity that we see here today, because already with the world going online and accelerated by the COVID pandemic, which really accelerated the technology infusion into our system, the nature of crime has shifted from the physical world to the online world. Most of the crimes we see a shift, even if you take the criminal crime records from any country as such. There is a paradigm shift from the physical world to the digital world. So cyber crimes is going up everywhere. All kinds of crimes are coming up. Whether you look at the social media, you look at the bank frauds, or you look at crimes against children and women also, everything has shifted from the physical world to the digital world. And what we see is, of course, a manifold jump in cyber crimes with the COVID pandemic coming up. Because naturally, we know most of the criminals, everybody is, of course, locked up in their homes, engaged in online activity. And so it is quite but natural that crimes also would go up. But the way that crime has gone up on the social media, if you look at the figures around the country, which is not different in Kerala also, crimes against children have gone up by almost 300% around the globe and not everywhere else as such. Social media crimes, where you have abuse, where you have cheating, where you have all kinds of attacks against women, or bank frauds also, the various kinds of OTP frauds, the bank frauds, the card frauds also, they have gone up manifold in these past 1 to 2 years as such, due to various reasons, and primarily being the lockdown part and the world turning online. Now, the strategy has to, because we were really pushed on with the COVID, suddenly everybody had to go into this online framework without looking at security much. We had to accelerate in many areas, online classes, online work from home, etc. The security angle could not be really looked into by all these companies, because that is where they actually suffered. That's why we had a lot of weakness when we implemented all these online systems. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have now. And what we have done in Kerala is we have actually, for the past many years, we have understood that police alone cannot handle all these problems together. So there has to be a partnership with all the stakeholders, with the private sector. And that is what we are building up with all the stakeholders in the online platform, including the banks, including the government sector, including the educational institutions, the schools. Everybody we have bought into a platform called Cyberdome, where the private and the industry and the government comes together, and we find out equal solutions on how to secure ourselves. and that strategy has proved to be very successful. We have one of the best handling of cyber crimes throughout the state, and all the stakeholders are available on a platform where we can come together and look at whether the bank sites are secure, whether the educational department sites are working together. So the police doesn't work in isolation. We actually work on a platform where all these stakeholders are together, and we devise strategies to handle the emerging cyber crimes. So that's a very successful model throughout the globe, and that is what we are doing in Kerala also.
After understanding Kerala's perspective, let me go to Maharashtra. I'll ask my next question to Mr. Balsing Rajput. Sir, Mumbai being India's financial headquarters, adequate and foolproof cybersecurity is needed. Which are ongoing initiatives to make Maharashtra a safe state from cyber attacks?
There are three aspects. One is Mumbai is a financial capital, commercial capital, and entertainment capital. Now, last few months during the pandemic, we have seen there is a rise in various applications in pornographic field, pedophiles, and the escort services kind of websites. So Mumbai police has started a crackdown on such kind of activities. So this is one kind of crime that is now coming up as a social, we can say, deflector kind of a crime, which need to be curbed. Second, that we are experiencing a sextortion kind of crime. That there are gangs, they are coming up, they are extorting the people of imminent nature, and for that Mumbai police is doing something. And third thing is about the piracy that entertainment industry is facing in Mumbai. For that, Mumbai police and the Maharashtra Cyber have come up with the anti-piracy unit called MCDCU. But to tackle, because if you see the load of complaints at Mumbai, we receive on an average yearly near about 10,000 applications in Mumbai city. If you see the perspective of Maharashtra, Maharashtra receives around 50,000 applications. These are applications. To process that, we need specialized agency. So Maharashtra have created police stations in each district as a special unit to process and investigate all kind of such complaints. And to strengthen that police stations, we have created cyber labs with adequate facilities, technical know-how, and what kind of tools and technology that are needed we are providing attached to that police station, so that any complainant who files a complaint through suppose a online national cybercrime reporting portal gets landed to district headquarters. Then to at district headquarters we have cyber police station, we analyze it, filter it, and process it immediately within 36 to 48 hours and convey to the complainant. So this is because the one aspect of the cyber security in every attack is the cyber crime that need to be tackled, and Maharashtra is more focused on tackling these cyber crimes. So we have in Maharashtra, in Mumbai city, we have 5 cyber police stations, a cyber wing, and for the Maharashtra, we have 43 cyber police stations, apart from having a nodal office as a Maharashtra cyber. So this is a kind of arrangement Maharashtra has made to tackle the cyber crimes. On other front of cyber security, means securing the other installations from cyber attacks, Maharashtra is coming up with a project, Maharashtra Cyber Security Project, that is a bit delayed. But in that, the regional CERT and the Center of Excellence will be helpful to tackling the cyber attacks on critical infrastructures, particularly power sector, banking sector, and the other government institutions that are important to be defended by the government. So that is how the cyber security ecosystem that is coming up in Maharashtra.
Thank you, Dr. Balsing. So my next question to Mr. Golok Kumar Simli. Mr. Simli, Passport Sewa is a project of India's Ministry of External Affairs, for which you are a Chief Technology Officer. What is your mantra for cybersecurity?
And I thank you, Economic Times and ET government for bringing this panel discussion, which is the need of the day. Now, coming back to the topic, Arpit, let me give a different kind of a attention to the cyber security, we say, information security, we say, data security, we say. And where do you miss and how do you plan when you are planning for a cyber security attempt or information and data security attempt? There are plenty of areas which you need to focus, but let me focus on 5-6 areas where we go wrong, when you are strategizing your cybersecurity framework or building your data and information security framework. The first and foremost thing to be focused is that we always say that you start with a minimal kind of a document which you can adhere, which you can kind of a monitor, which you can do kind of a real time kind of a visibility and monitoring. And that document is called Information Security Management Policy Document. For me, like Passport Sewa kind of a program, the entire ministry where I'm not addressing the citizens or the cyber security part of India alone, but we are also addressing the cyber security concern globally in terms of my global embassies and consulate and the Indian diaspora who are accessing the passport related services, right? And if that is to be done, as I said, this document need to be made handy, which you can adhere. The second very important document which always we miss is we don't know the risk factor. And if you don't know the risks, then what are you planning for the security? Now, let me take one more minute here. When I say the risk factor, risks in terms of your business or the one which you are trying to protect for, the risks in terms of technology intervention you are doing, the risks in terms of your employee and stakeholder. Do you really understand your employee well? Do you really understand your workforce well? Do you really understand your stakeholders well? So in terms of people, in terms of employee, in terms of a stakeholder, what is the risks you are carrying, right? Then the last thing is, we again always mix is in terms of regulatory and compliance risk, right? Now, again, I am saying there is something called risk management methodology document, not maybe more than 25-30 pages, but you have to make it and you need to understand what kind of risks you are carrying in terms of cyber security, in terms of information security, in terms of data security, and then probably you start building your data and information security framework. Now, once you identify these two documents, not very large document, which you can adhere, which you can make real time, which you can make 24/7. Security is no more kind of it's real time 24/7. So that kind of documents once you create, then now you focus on your businesses. Do you understand your business well in terms of what is my sovereign data, what is my non-sovereign data, what is my critical data, what is my public data, what is my configurable data? Do you really understand that? If not, again, you are going terribly wrong, let me tell you, while building the security framework. So again, then the data part, the process part, the function part, the business part, you must identify what is your sovereign nature of business. What is your non-sovereign nature of business? What is your sovereign data? What is your non-sovereign data? What is your fiduciary data? What is your confidential data? Again, you need to work on that, right? Then once you identify these 3-4 areas, then probably you start defining your access, authorization, and I always say that your kind of a what kind of role and other thing you are trying to distribute, not only among your users but also among your stakeholders and other who will access your corporate network, your corporate application, your business application. So then you start defining those access, authorizations, role segregations, role assignment. And what we do is we do other way. You start with defining role, defining access, defining authorization, even without knowing your business well, even without knowing your data well, even without knowing your risks well, you start doing the access and authorization part. Then the last thing is, once you are defining your access and authorization, you also must understand your two more important things, the access and authorization routes. Now, there are two parts of it. One is now we are into a cyber kind of a world after the pandemic, after the COVID thing. Now, everything is over internet. So that means most of the access and authorization will happen over the internet, right? Over a cyber space. And the other kind of access on authorization will happen from your intranet world, which you typically call closed user group. Now, more or less, there is hardly any closed user group because of this kind of a pandemic kind of a scenario. So then you start defining your access and authorization route. Now, next part of the probably questionnaire, now I'll try to brief you. While you are defining all those things, there are two more important things. How do you govern? How do you govern your data? How do you govern your processes? And how do you govern your policy and compliance framework?
Now let me jump on to Dr. Triveni Singh. He has joined. Dr. Singh, cyber financial frauds are exponentially rising day by day in Uttar Pradesh. With the increasing use of digital payment and mobile banking, there has been a sharp increase in financial cybercrime. UP Police has prepared itself adequately and set up a dedicated call center at UP 112, which has been integrated with the National Cyber Financial Crime Helpline 155260. What has been your experience in this regard? How are you addressing the issues pertaining to the cybercrime and financial cybercrime?
Last 18-19 months, Ministry of Home Affairs, they initiated a website, cybercrime.gov.in. So what happens, anyone can register his cyber complaint, and that complaint comes to our state on our portal. So in last 18 months, we have got more than 55,000 cases related to UP only. And as far as entire country is concerned, perhaps more than 5 lakh cases has. So now you can see the exponential rise in the cases as far as my state is concerned. So just 2-3 months back, MHA started a helpline number, Financial Cybercrime Helpline number 155260. So on the daily basis, we are getting more than 1,000 cases, So, so you can imagine the magnitude of the cybercrime in financial domain also. When we do the analysis of all these 55,000 cases plus 10,000 cases which we have registered in UP in last 1 year, so we find that definitely more than 50% cases are related with financial frauds. The financial fraud happening through different social engineering techniques. They are defrauding you by sending some QR code or taking your OTP or compromising your banking credentials. N number of ways they are defrauding you. Some in the name of jobs, some in the name of visa and tourism. These criminals are really innovative. They are very creative, and they are really smart. What we have done here, that we have integrated 155260 onto our 112, which is emergency response system. There are more than 4,000 vehicles, vehicles, are located all over Uttar Pradesh, and their location and monitoring is done on the basis of GPS mapping. So what happens, we have given the option to you, public here, that if you are victim of cybercrime, you can straightway dial either 112 or 155260. So even if they are dialing 112, the call is landing out at our headquarters, and we had deployed 10 police officers in 3 sessions. 30 police officers round the clock to attend their phone number. So immediately what will happen, the call lands, and then we note down their mobile number and their banking details, and then MHA has given us the portal to feed that data. Once we are feeding that data into that portal, this is automatically escalated to the financial stakeholder, be it bank or payment bank or wallet company or even e-merchants. They are all integrated onto same platform. That's in last 1 month, we have saved, more than 1 crore defrauded money. Either we got it blocked at in this supply chain, at some or other point we have got this money blocked, and they are getting their money back also. So this is an excellent initiative by MHA. As far as cybercrime police station or cyber crime infra is concerned in UP, we have got 18 cybercrime police station exclusively created to cater the cybercrime cases only. Each at range headquarters, I mean commissionerate, and we are setting up basic cyber lab at 18 different police stations and one advanced cyber lab at our cyber headquarters. So now our focus is on capacity building. We are training them in cyber forensic. We are calling experts from banking domain, then ethical hackers, cyber security experts. They are all time, they are coming and training our police officers. And we have recruited them on the basis of their aptitude, their qualification, and their willingness. Those who are willing to come as inspector, DSP, or this kind, only those are coming to cyber domain. And we ask them to stay at least 3 years because we are training them. We are putting lots of effort in training them. Definitely, they have to stay here. Even we have sent a proposal to the government that there should be some extra incentive, some special allowances for these police officers, though those who are employed in cyber security, cyber crime domain, because it's skill based. On daily basis, you need to update your technical skill, and we need lots of tools and even out of pocket expenses done by this. So we are trying to compensate them through different, the reward system. Hopefully, we are going to get it sanctioned. Special allowances will be given to this cybercrime police officers. So this is now one more option we have given, and 1090. If a girl is victim, a lady is victim, somebody is tracking her, somebody is into cyberbullying or cyber stalking, or even a financial victim, then especially the girl, they have the 1090 exclusive number. They can dial, and some call taker is going to take all the details. Being anonymous, if the girl doesn't want to disclose her identity, it will be kept anonymous, and then the legal action will be taken against those who are into cyber stalking and all that. As far as nature of the crime is concerned, apart from these social media crimes and financial crimes, we are having even cases related with cryptocurrency exchange fraud, ransomware attack, several cases we have, even cyber terrorism. These kind of cases are coming, there are constant attack on our critical infra. We are getting all the logs and data. We are doing the data analysis, and we are planning to make a inventory of our state critical information infrastructure, and we are planning to train them to make them aware what is basic, cyber security fundamentals, cyber security countermeasures that they should undertake to protect their protected system, to protect their critical infra. So this kind of initiative we are taking right now in Uttar Pradesh.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. You talked two important things. One is the ransomware attack, and two is the capacity building. So I'll go to Kerala and Maharashtra in my next round of questions to know more about the capacity building. But before that, quickly, I would like to understand from Mr. Jatin Gambhir. Mr. Gambhir, Akamai Technologies is a global content delivery network, cybersecurity and cloud service company providing cyber security products, solutions, and services. Akamai's Intelligence Edge platform is one of the world's largest distributed computing platforms. Phishing and ransomware have become the most rampant form of cybercrime and exponentially increasing threat to organizations. What are your thoughts on mitigating such threats?
Thank you. So I think first and foremost, it was very impressive to hear all the industry leaders and all the law enforcement leaders about how some of the practices are being put in. Very, very comforting to hear some of these practices. But I think I'll take a cue from what Golok ji said of, what are you protecting? How are you protecting? So I think the first thing it was always is that when you're looking at security, you're as intelligent as the amount of data you have, right? You have to take more and more intelligent decisions, and where are you enforcing those decisions? So in that, the first most important aspect becomes is that when you're taking the decision, what kind of threat intelligence do you have, right? How are you taking all the known and unknown from various sources and able to, make intelligent decisions at the edge of the internet? So that's a very important first stepping stone, and which is where, as we see more and more, investments going in SOC by various police departments, by various states. I think a very integral part of it, that what kind of data is being plugged into those SOCs, so that we are able to take more and more intelligent decisions, and we have access to that amount of data. The second important aspect of that comes in is that, again, as everyone was mentioning, we look at two different aspects. And I think during the pandemic, that's come out even more clearly. One is when you're talking about your consumer, your customer, or whom you're serving, right? So how you're protecting your apps and APIs, and how you're protecting your user. How is that data, because of which you have banking and you have fintech, and now schools are online, healthcare is online. So it's becoming more and more eminent that you're protecting your assets, which are your apps and APIs, and also your user data, right? And which is where I think it's the need of the hour to ensure that we are looking at this as a very holistic solution of looking at an integral part, that how do you kind of assess the risk attached with it, and how do you put in your security mitigation measures around it, whether it is your web application attacks, you have DDoS attacks, you have now we're seeing a massive increase in credential abuse, right? Because of the amount of data which is available. Half the traffic on the internet today is not even human. It's bots and APIs, right? So it's important to understand who's engaging with your application, understand, what is it a user? Is it a human? Is it a bot? Is it an API? What are they trying to do? What are the kind of thing doing around it? The important aspect of that also is that how do you fundamentally reduce the attack surface itself, right? Because the more widespread it is, the more mitigation layers you'll have to put in. So how do you even bring that down? Which also during the pandemic, I think another thing which came out was that not just your applications which were exposed to your consumer, but even your internal users suddenly were all relying on the internet to even keep the day-to-day work going on, right? So suddenly there was no perimeter, there was no office, everyone was working from everywhere, and internet became the very corporate network itself, right? So, and in our experience on working with various governments, various law enforcement, various startups, large enterprises, I think one thing is very, very common. Wherever there is data, there is a risk of that data being stolen, because there is dollars attached to it, there's money attached to it, right? So, which is why, again, what Triveni sir said, ransomware phishing is at an all-time high, right? There is a massive increase in there, because the number of sites, the fake sites you will see, which are coming and talking about COVID-related things, or talking about various information coming in, and you're getting paid more and more to it. The important aspect is that, one, how are you fundamentally stopping it? Second, even if someone is getting affected by it, how does that attack is not going further and affecting your core application by it, right? By which what we mean is that, and my earlier point of reducing the attack surface itself, today a lot of applications, especially the internal ones, are accessed over a network layer, right? But if you move it fundamentally to an application layer, then you are restricting the entire attack to an application only, and not getting further distributed into your overall architecture, right? Which is where the concept of zero trust and all comes in. And because your user is now everywhere, even if a machine is getting infected, how do you ensure that an infected machine cannot come and create further havoc in your thing? Which is where, how do you get an insight on those ransomware phishing and all that, and how do you protect it further on, right? The fourth important aspect which I would like to call out is that, again, I think taking it from one of the fellow panelists, that it's not something which you put in and you say, okay, now I am secure. It's always an ongoing thing. There are new threat actors, there are new vectors which are coming on a day-to-day basis. How are we on an ongoing basis monitoring it? How are we constantly upskilling ourselves? How are we constantly looking at investing in these areas where we are not just monitoring it on an ongoing basis, but also reviewing and constantly keeping our security posture up to date on that point, right? So again, just to summarize, I think it's about the data, the threat intelligence become a very important part, your assets, which are your apps, APIs, and your customer, right, which are the login and credential, which is important. Then I think on the moving it from a layer, from an application, from a network to an application layer, and really putting in a mitigation strategy around your ransomware, phishing, and such like that. And at a constant ongoing basis, how do we monitor and keep it up on an ongoing basis? I think it all comes together to really make it a holistic ongoing engagement rather than a once deploy and leave it kind of a solution.
Thank you, Mr. Gambhir, for sharing these insights. Now let me go to Mr. Samani. Mr. Samani, McAfee is a global computer security software company What has been the scenario of cyber threats in the pandemic globally? In your view, how vulnerable are government organizations in general?
This is not, or really the use of digital warfare by criminals or nation states or, effectively anybody with access to a computer. What we see today is all sorts of targets, and that's across different geographies, across different sectors. I mean, over the last 18 months, it really has been a high volume, but in amongst the high volume, there have been some very capable threat groups. Some of those threat groups have been really successful in terms of disrupting critical infrastructure at major nations. So that is the reality of the world we live in. But I likewise, on the flip side, we saw in 2013 the FBI reported that actually there was a decrease in bank robberies. So individuals, or certainly criminals, are becoming more digitally savvy. That then has a knock-on effect in terms of physical crime. And maybe just to add to the other point, I know there's been a lot of talk about ransomware and phishing, but the most common method by what we would call human-operated ransomware groups is actually the use of RDP, remote desktop protocol. It's actually not phishing. So effectively, strong cyber hygiene will go a long way in terms of protecting organizations. So it's important that organizations have that baseline of cyber hygiene.
I think maintaining cyber hygiene is the topmost priority of the public sector organization as well as the businesses. So I said I'll discuss the capacity building part. So I'll go to Mr. Manoj Abraham. Sir, you heard these all panelists, all of them are struggling with the challenges of cyber security. What are the key challenges you face in cybersecurity in Kerala, and how are you addressing the capacity building issue?
A lot of with these problems around, as most of the speakers have detailed. There are a lot of challenges with these cyber crimes itself, or the cyber security issues, because it's a technological issue. And one of the major problems is with the lack of capacity that we have, and the nature of technology itself. Technology is something which is a complicated thing which keeps on changing. It's not that the same technology is always there. Suppose you train a policeman in investigating a murder case, it's easy, he'll carry on throughout his life with that training. But with technology, with cyber crimes, it keeps on changing. Every few months a new technology comes up. The complication of that particular cybercrime keeps on changing. It's a very cat and mouse game that you have to keep on playing with the whole stuff that is coming, and very technical kinds of ransomware which no policeman can understand. If you go to a particular police station and say there's a ransomware attack, in most of the stations in the country, nobody would understand what it is or how to deal with it. So capacity building is one of the most crucial elements that we need to look at when we are talking of handling cyber crimes, because most of the people now in the police department have to have a basic knowledge. That's what we are trying to do in Kerala. We have built up cyber police stations in all the districts, but that is not enough.
The same thing Mr. Samani was also emphasizing upon, to maintain cyber hygiene. So let me go to Maharashtra speaker, Dr. Balsing Rajput. What is being done in Maharashtra to build cyber resilience, and what is Maharashtra's experience in dealing with cyber related issues, especially during the pandemic time?
Now, there are two issues. One, you mentioned building cyber resilience, and another is what was the condition during the pandemic. I will answer the second first. During the pandemic, what we have seen is there was initially a rise in the fake news and misinformation campaigns, particularly that campaigns were a smeared campaign against some religions. No, each religion and caste and groups were playing against each other. So we have registered complaints, near about 600 FIRs, and arrested more than 100 people. Still, that could be contained. Another factor that we came to know was that cheating, particularly for online services like liquor, online liquor service, maybe online matrimonial services, online delivery services, the people were rampantly cheated because most of the people who were using the services were not aware. The technological companies and service providers companies, I feel that they have to improve their awareness campaign that how their products should be used, how their services and the technological platforms can be misused, and what precautions the customer should take or a user should take. So these were the few aspects. Then another aspect was that the hate speech and the fake news. So fake news, misinformation, we tackled, we coordinated with the service providers and took down more than 5,000 pieces of such fake news. So it was a coordinated approach with the service providers. That is what we did during the pandemic. It was mostly on the preventive kind of side, identifying, filtering, then labeling, and then conveying it to the service providers and taking it down. And the second part was to registering FIR. So that is what we did. Second trend that we observed, that there was an increase in particularly cyber economic crimes. It was not the cyber attacks that but we found that the crimes which are motivated for economic gains were on higher side. Because most of the attacks that are happening on organizations. But if you see the people in general, they are being cheated. Phishing, take a sextortion. No, all these cases are but cheating to the people. So they are on economic side. Third thing, I will come to your first question, is what Maharashtra is doing to build a resiliency. To have a cyber resiliency, it's not only just procuring the technologies or hardening the infrastructures. What we as an believe is that there are three to four components. One is infrastructure. That is all kind of tools and technologies come into that bracket. How much IT technologies or products we buy is not going to save us all the things. There is no company which claims to be cybersecurity company or even a service provider on any kind of service provider in a world that has not been breached. It doesn't mean that a company or a technology can't be breached. It's the man behind that machine. Manoj Abraham sir, Samani sir, and Triveni sir, both all the three mentioned that there is a need to have the cyber hygiene, awareness, and training, because that is what is going to prevent. It's the stupidity of the human mind to prevent its stupidity or reduce the mistakes committed by the user. We need awareness, capacity building, and training. These are the things. Apart from that, a regulatory and institutional mechanisms, to build the institutional and regulatory mechanisms very much need, because attackers are working in cohesive and synchronized manner. Their target, their focus is limited, but we don't know, as in defenders, we don't know where they are going to attack, what kind of attack vector they are using, and what kind of asset they are looking for, whether they are looking for data, whether they are looking for disruption, whether what kind of thing they are focusing, that we don't know. So we have to defend many things. We have to defend network, we have to train our people, we have to defend the critical infra, we have to protect the data. There are vast territory or a landscape that we have to protect, and that is where we fail, because we build resiliency in technology sector, we then fail in human resources that need to update it. Sometimes we lag behind in regulation and the legal framework. So I feel to bring a resiliency is not to stop the attacks at all, but a company or the state or the organization should come up again and fight that crime. That is what we believe in the resiliency, and that is the way we are trying to build the organizations in Maharashtra and the ecosystem in Maharashtra. That's what I want to tell about the cyber resiliency. Thank you.
I'll go to Dr. Triveni Singh. Dr. Triveni Singh, Uttar Pradesh government has sanctioned nearly 33 crore rupees for strengthening new cyber police stations. You told that efforts are being made to arrange database management, forensic tools, data analysis software, data extraction software, etc. for cyber labs and all cyber police stations. What is your take on the challenges, cyber resiliency, and capacity building? What challenges do you face in cyber security? How are you addressing them?
earlier they used to commit very cybercrime cases simple by nature, and our policemen, they used to track them through IP addresses and IMEI and all that. When you needed to be a rocket scientist or a computer scientist to track them. Now, the criminals are using spoofing tools, VoIP platforms, their proxy, they are using proxy. They have become very smart. They are using VPN technology and bulletproof hosting and all that. They are using bots to commit the crime. So the nature of cybercrime is getting more and more sophisticated day by day, That's why, as Manoj Abraham sir told, that we need to reskill ourselves, upskill ourselves, on the daily basis, because the criminals are far ahead in their knowledge, in their hands-on and tools and techniques. So now our focus is more on technology side, so as to give them theoretical background and number hands-on on tools which are available in the market. Like for example, suppose someone is coming with ransomware attack, like 6 chartered accountants came to my office and they said, sir, our desktop has been compromised and they are asking the money in Bitcoins and this is the file signature, Now, what is ransomware? What is ransomware? If somebody is paying in Bitcoin, how to track them? Today, I went through in the newspapers that a Poly network has been attacked, and $600 million, crypto currency has been, compromised on a particular blockchain-based cryptocurrency platform. Now, suppose this case is coming to me, then what to do? The first problem is it really a currency? Then what should I treat it? It's a crypto asset. And crypto, so in which section I should register the case? Like in the past, there have been several cases of data breach. In no case, be it Dr. Reddy, Path Lab, or even Haldiram, we got registered cases. In most of the cyber attack cases, in ransomware cases, the case is not coming to the police station, and that's why the criminals are not being tracked. You see what happened in USA. There was a cyber attack on the Colonial Pipeline, and the FBI came into the picture, and along with cooperation from several countries, somehow they intervened, they paid the money, but meanwhile they blocked it. They blocked the entire cryptocurrency or the cash somewhere in the chain, and they could recover the money. But that capacity, that kind of skill set, that kind of cooperation, coordinated approach is missing here, in India. Largely because, policemen, they do not understand the technology. They are not recruited for this kind of job because it's highly technical, a different kind of on the daily basis, zero-day attack and zero-click fraud, So this kind of crime we are not used to deal with, and this is the greatest challenge. And you just believe me, if I refer these cases to cyber security experts, those who are known, internationally known, even I have referred these cases to them. They are helpless in ransomware attack cases and even cryptocurrency exchange fraud. So now I am using this platform to raise my concern. So what will happen if there is no help coming even from the corporate sector, even from the infosec domain, if not coming to, then what can be expected from a law enforcement agency and police officer, those who are not recruited for this kind of technical job? And that's why I always advise that there should be a different kind of cyber security, cyber cops, different kind of entirely. Their recruitment rules, their qualification, expertise, everything should be like a corporate style. It's not something that we can pick and choose from 3 lakh people and then we are going to train them, because it's a need of hardcore technology awareness. Only then you can solve these questions. So these are my concerns, and these concerns I am putting before you all just to ponder. So what may be the way forward, what should you do?
Mr. Golok, my next question to you is, managing cybersecurity is a continuous process of every organization. So which are your ongoing initiatives for cyber resilience? We talked a lot about resilience.
The approach should be holistic. It can't be on beat and pieces. Suppose you protect your data layer, you kept your network layer open, then you are completely gone. Suppose you protect your data and network layer, but your perimeter is left open, then you are completely gone. So how do you take a holistic approach then, right? Now, let me tell what I have done while I was taking a holistic approach. Two very important things. One is whenever you are taking a holistic approach, you must ensure that security has to be by design. The problem we do is security always is left to a audit. No, it is a post facto kind of a scenario. No, not at all. Security has to be by design. Security has to be intrinsic. When I say intrinsic, at each layer of the digital foundation you are creating, at each layer of the application you are writing, at each layer of the people and process intervention you are doing, the security has to be intrinsic. You can't have a post facto audit kind of a scenario, which is again a gone thing, right? And what I have done, for an example, right from my data layer to application layer to my host layer to if I go to the perimeter and network layer, and then on top of that, the physical perimeter security, access and identity, and then and each of these layers, let me tell you, I have various mechanism I am protecting, right from data layer to app layer to host layer to application and network layer to physical layer. And then on top of that, I have also taken care, I think some of our colleague and sir from Kerala was saying that, is that your regulatory framework, is there your compliance framework, is that your law available with you, whether it is IT Act 2000 or your own act, for an example, my Passport Act 1967, are you in tune with the available law of the land, so that tomorrow if something happens, where do you go? You approach to the law, right? And when you approach to the law, they will simply ask you, have you done whatever law available with you as per whatever security or data you are trying to protect for, or your business application you are trying to protect for. And on top of that, technology side, for an example, I have ISO 27001 compliance. I have all the risks controlled, which I have to deploy in the corporate network or application I have deployed. And then on top of that, I have 24/7 security operations center, which is very important today. It is no more a kind of a post facto thing. You have to be one step ahead of the bad man. You have to one step ahead of the bad man. And once you have done this kind of a holistic approach, then what we realize, Arpit, then you have to develop a culture, a culture which we are trying to develop, or which we have developed, saying that now you are into a digital culture. Do you know the digital ethics? Do you know the digital culture? How do you behave? How do you make them aware? Where to click, where not to click? If you have clicked, how much damage it is done? If a damage has been done, is that the complete damage has been done? How much time will take to recover? What is your BCP mechanism? What is your BCP plan to recover the damage? Or let's say, if one layer of the data center is, let's say attacked, is that the entire data center is down, or that layer itself, it is sandboxes and not taken care? Or if a client device is attacked, is that the client device alone attacked, or your corporate network is gone? So how are you planning? Where is your strategy? So this has to be a holistic approach. And I always say that when you are going for this kind of a holistic approach, how much visibility you can create? Visibility in terms of processes, visibility in terms of access and authorization, visibility in terms of stakeholders, and visibility at large. I mean, visibility at large in terms of beneficiaries and citizens at large. Now, if you take this kind of a holistic approach, I personally believe that there is a way forward you are trying to attempt to protect your security and data and information layer. So thank you.
And I'll come to all the panelists for understanding the way forward. But before that, let me go to Mr. Raj Samani. Mr. Raj Samani, adding to what our speaker from Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Triveni Singh said, being a technology-savvy nation, India is aligned with technology for its ongoing development vision. In which areas, according to you, India can do better in cybersecurity, and your inputs on the challenges faced by Uttar Pradesh and other states that we discussed.
Well, I don't think India is unique in the challenges that it faces. I think all nations across the globe are faced with, more aggressive offensive operations by other nation states looking to extract intellectual property, looking to disrupt operations. I mean, we've already heard about the challenges from social media, for example. I mean, in the last 18 months, we've seen disruptive campaigns looking to spread misinformation in the United Kingdom associated with COVID and 5G. So I don't think India is necessarily unique in the challenges that it faces. I think the challenge that India faces predominantly is it has to, well, all nations have to do more to get people to report. Likewise, and it looks like, what's been presented by the officials here is tremendous. The fact that we've got this reporting mechanism to allow people to raise cases. But of course, the question is going to become, as the fraud rates go up, how are you going to be able to respond to those? And so I would urge law enforcement here to follow the examples of, for example, EC3, European Cybercrime Center. We co-founded the No More Ransom initiative between ourselves, the Dutch high-tech crime unit. There are some great examples from law enforcement agencies doing public-private partnerships, collaborating with the private sector. We launched this in 2016 ourselves, Kaspersky, the Dutch high-tech crime unit, Amazon, and Barracuda. And now there's 150 partners, and we've prevented nearly $1 billion going into the hands of criminals. So I would strongly urge finding ways to collaborate with private sector with actionable tools that can prevent or even potentially make a dent in the ROI for criminals.
Mr. Raj, going forward, what do you see the future of e-governance in India?
We are moving globally towards a world in which we are utterly dependent upon technology. Today, we have a scenario in which a nurse can open an email and people don't get healthcare, where oil production is disrupted, where production of automotive it can now be achieved with the click of a button. We are becoming more and more dependent, and that's fantastic. But likewise, it does represent, whilst tremendous opportunities, does represent risk.
Thank you, Mr. Raj. Mr. Jatin, I'm coming over to you. Security monitoring and operations are rapidly evolving to keep up with a very dynamic threat landscape by security in organizations. So automation, advanced analytics, and machine learning are some of the tools leveraged by security solution providers to keep up with the threats. Your thoughts on how cyber threat intelligence can provide greater insights into the cyber threats? And in addition to that, what Dr. Triveni Singh said, what are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, I think, as I said earlier, that, you're as intelligent as the amount of data you have to make those decisions. So I think whether we're talking about machine learning and all the input for all of that, is that how we are getting collective, we're aggregating all the information, we know the do's and don'ts, and kind of putting it into actual use, right? And that's where, there are various amount of vectors which are available. There are various threat intelligence which go into it for making more and more intelligent decisions around it. And I think some of them are fairly unique as well, right? And I think a lot of them can be put into practice. A simple example would be if we already know that there is a malicious IP or some IP which is already involved in certain amount of activities in the past, why would you want to give them access beyond a point? Some could be, which could, you know about it, but you might want to monitor it a little more. So it's not one size fits all. But in order to take those kind of decisions and actions, it's important that we have that information so that we can take the corresponding action around it, right? Another example of that would be that there are known ransomware and phishing sites, right? We are able to take more and more informed decisions. If we know about more of them, we are able to kind of keep a library and ensure that as and when there is more exposure to that, we have a ranking for it and we're able to take right decisions around it. So threat intelligence is a direct subset of the amount of data, and how do we crunch that data and how do we take actionable insights out of it. The other thing I also believe is that what Mr. Triveni also said is that it's a very evolving ecosystem, and every day the problems are changing, right? And all of us are trying to keep up with doing our core job, right? It could be, as a law enforcement agency, it could be passport, whose core job is eventually to, manage the issue passports to the citizens of the country. But all of them are now completely driven by technology. At the same time, it's very important that how do you plan your security, which is so fundamental to your very existence now, because the technology is the core of how it is being built, and security is the single largest threat around it, that for whatever it's worth, if it comes down, then the entire unit comes down. It's important to ensure that we are building certain amount of excellence in-house, but also partnering with the right industry, have partner with the industry, partner with the other, and do a lot of data sharing and knowledge sharing in that one. Because it's now a time where everyone has to come together and a lot of information has to be shared in order to take those intelligent decisions and take it accordingly. And you have to continue to focus on the core job and have the right partnerships and have the right ecosystem, which is helping you with the various specialized functions. It's a highly specialized function now. So you have to kind of make a fundamental choice there.
Thank you, Mr. Gambhir. We are almost at the end of the discussion. So last 5 minutes. So I'll ask quick questions to the panelists. So I'll first go to Dr. Balsing. Dr. Balsing, so your concluding remarks about building a future-ready cybersecurity framework. Going forward, what do you see the future of e-governance in India?
For future-ready cybersecurity for organizations, and we should not focus only on technology, but we should focus on technology, the human resources, and the regulatory regime. All these three are very important. And for e-governance, future-ready e-governance, we need to invest in people and technology now. It's not too far that we will be attacked on every nook and corner by the aggressive opponents. So that's why that's what I want to say in the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Rajput. Dr. Triveni Singh, what are your thoughts on building a future-ready cybersecurity framework, and your thoughts on future of e-governance in India?
I would like to emphasize on the fact that there is a need for collaboration between the private, corporate, government, and police. Because the corporate sector, I have seen that they are more brand conscious. They think that if we are going to the police station, it will come into the media and their brand will be affected. Till we are going hiding this kind of sophisticated cybercrime cases, and it's not coming to police or even the government, and otherwise what will happen? They will go on paying the ransom. There is no end. That's why putting all hesitation aside, they need to come to the police, and the police, private sector, corporate sector, they has to come on the same platform. Only then we can give the resilient, Indian cyber ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Golok. Your concluding remarks about building future-ready cybersecurity
I'll
framework.
say that Arpit saying that there is a dire need of a security governance model now. We all know about data governance, but there is a dire need of a security governance model. There is also a need of, I think most of us, we realize that it is not alone by the government. There has to be an innovation. There has to be a industry participation so that the investment and finance is taken care, and it is all time to come. It is not one time or it is not one go. It is a continuous effort, continuous exercise. And last but not thing is, the least thing is, you develop a culture of security, a culture of ethics, a culture of digital. That is very important. So this is my last take. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raj, I'll come to you. Your concluding remarks, as everyone is saying, there is a need to build partnership between the corporate and the governments. Your thoughts?
Well, I think fundamentally we have to acknowledge that cybersecurity is not an IT problem. The impact of a cyber attack is not just impacting computers, it is real life. So what I would strongly urge everybody really is to find ways and find partners that you can work with in order to be able to provide a society that a society that can leverage technology and mitigate the risks from people that are out there to do harm. So for me, that's the priority.
Jatin, your concluding remarks. what are your suggestions to build a future-ready cybersecurity framework in India?
Internet is now an integral part of our life. It's an existential thing, and I think it's important that we all take our responsibility seriously on how we are engaging in the cyber world. But at the same time, yes, when we are offering these service to our consumer, to our users and stuff like that, there's a certain responsibility. So security has to move away from a tick in the box to, a value driven, as Sir said, into the design itself. And I think it's also important to take informed decisions of the risk reward ratio, right? Because it's not just about saying, regulation could say one thing, but your design could say another. So how do you strike a balance between the two is really need of the art. And again, my final thing would be you're as strong as the amount of data you have and where you're protecting your users. So it's a data-driven, value-driven security world where everyone has to be aware and really take responsibility towards it. It's a joint responsibility.
Yeah, it's a joint responsibility. I too agree. Thank you for your thoughts. And I think to get out ahead of these challenges, organizations need to do two things. First, stay abreast of ongoing trends. And second, begin preparation now to defend against these emerging threats. So with this, I conclude today's panel discussion on building a future-ready cybersecurity framework, part of the second edition of ET Government DigiTech Conclave 2021. Thank you so much.